I put out a video yesterday just talking about what happens to cars that don't get sold. What are the different strings that dealers can pull, and if the car sits on a lot way too long, what happens to it? And I was surprised to see in the comments so many comments about talking about just junking cars to keep the prices high.
Yes.
And this question right here is very, very similar to what I saw yesterday.
Yes.
Is there a possibility of manufacturers taking cars back and destroying them to take supply down? The answer to this is absolutely no. They're not going to just take inventory that they have millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in and just scrap it. That inventory is going to get sold and it's going somewhere.
Yes. When Zach and I first started doing this 5 years ago, I mean, people would say, well, what about all those new car graveyards out in the middle of nowhere, where they just let the cars rot? I used to take the time to actually respond to these people and realized I was just banging my head against the wall. But the business model is not that the manufacturer builds the car, sells it to the dealer, okay, which means the manufacturer got paid for it, and then the dealer can't sell it, so he sends it out to the middle of nowhere to just sit and rot. That's not how a dealer gets his money back. Okay, the whole concept is, I believe, ROI, return on investment. Okay, you buy the vehicle so you can sell it and you can make some type of profit. If you sell it and you lose a little bit of money, then you sell it and you lose a little bit of money. No new car that gets invoiced to a dealer goes to some new car graveyard. If the dealer can't sell it to a retail customer, he will then try and wholesale it to another vehicle dealership. If he can't do that on his own, then he will take those vehicles to the auction and they will auction them off to the highest bidders at the auctions, and the dealership will take whatever loss is associated with that and then take that money and use it to buy something that they hope they can then turn around and make a profit on. But dealers aren't sending aged units to the middle of nowhere to just rot, and manufacturers aren't taking units that they've built and sending them to new vehicle graveyards just to sit and dilapidate and turn into dust eventually. That's not a business model that works. That's not how the business model is set up. So no. It ain't happening. At least in the 43 years I was active, I've never seen it. Have you?
No, I can tell you I've seen some new cars. It's been very rare over the last 13 years that I've done it. I almost never ever have seen brand new cars show up at auction. So usually these dealerships, they just find a way to sell it, right?
Yes.
But see, last year it was Jeep that was running into a lot of problems, and it snuck up on a lot of these dealers really quickly. And last year I started seeing brand new Jeep Cherokees, Grand Wagoneers, even like Rubicon, the Wranglers. Start seeing quite a bit of those pop up at auction, and they had 48, 52 miles on them. And I've never thought about it like that because I've never really seen it, because over 13 years, there's never been a inventory problem like we're seeing now that has surprised dealers. So they were able to prepare for it, sell cars throughout the year. And when they knew they weren't going to sell them, they wouldn't, they would pull back on their allocations. Right. But they went from wide open selling everything to not selling. It's like the switch just flipped and it surprised all of these dealerships. So that's why I started seeing a bunch of those. But yeah, these new cars, they can be titled to a used car dealer. So you can actually go to a used car dealership. It's going to be very rare.
Yeah.
But you could buy a brand new car from a used car dealership because they bought it at auction from a new car dealer.
One of the first videos that Zach and I ever did was there's no such thing as an unsold new car. Okay. Because once it's been invoiced to the dealer, it becomes the dealer's responsibility to turn that into cash again. So they ain't sitting on them forever. They're not sending them out to the middle of the country into some farmland that just sit there. They have to figure out how to turn that piece of metal into cash. And either they take a reduced deal to a retail customer, they wholesale it on their own to another dealer, or they take it to the auction and sell it there. But it is theirs to turn back into cash, not someone else's. So somebody's buying it, whether it's being bought at the wholesale auction, whether the dealer wholesale it to a friend of his who has a dealership down the street at a reduced rate. It's getting sold eventually to a retail customer.
All right, so all of you watching it here, I know most of you are not subscribed, so I need you to hit that subscribe button. Whatever we need to do to get you to hit that subscribe button, Ray will do it. So just hit it for us and let us know what he needs to do down in the comments to get you to subscribe. So here's a question kind of pertaining to that, and I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this. I'm going to change the question a little bit. Ray, what decade would you return to for the auto industry? I think they're talking about for everyone and everything to get better now, but I'm curious to know what was your favorite era of the car industry. What decade was your favorite to operate in, and why?
Well, it wasn't the 80s. And the reason it wasn't the 80s is because, well, the average loan for a car was about 16%.
That's a new car.
Yeah.
Close.
Mortgages were 16, 17%.
Yeah.
The 80s were a struggle. The 70s were fun. The 70s were a lot of fun. The Nissan store was outside of Atlantic City. The only reason we existed was because casino gaming had passed in New Jersey, and casinos were coming to Atlantic City. Starting at Admiral Nissan 3 weeks, well, it was Admiral Datsun when we first opened, starting at Admiral Datsun 3 weeks before the store actually opened, and having spent 12 years there, was just that decade from 1977 to 1989 was just so much fun. The people I met, the customers that I had, Steve Wynn, who used to own the Golden Nugget Hotel and Casino, and then obviously Wynn Hotel and Casino, the one that built Bellagio. And well, he had the Golden Nugget in Atlantic City. I remember spending time with Steve Wynn. He came in to test drive some cars. His brother Kenny was a customer of mine. Just having conversations with Steve when we were driving. I met musicians. I met, the directors of entertainment at casino hotels. From 77 to 89 at Admiral Nissan was just probably the most special time I ever had in the car business. So
interesting. Yeah, I like pulling up these memories because I know I'm going to have the same thing. Because I just remember when I first got into the business, it looked like when I go into the auctions, like nothing had changed since like the 70s.
Yes,
everything was still done on paper. And this was only 13 years ago. And my grandfather and I, we would go to these small country. It was like a little country auction. They would run 50 to 75 cars every week. All the same guys show up every single week. And everything would be done on paper. People would bring cash and literally hard cash to buy these vehicles. And it was a good, the smells of the oil, the gas. They had a little cafe, called a cafe, a little cafeteria, but it was just one dude at a window grilling some hot dogs. And man, that was the best. And it used to be fun then because you could go in and nobody was fighting each other to get these cars. You could buy cars for, I mean, there were cars for $300 that you could sell for $1,500. And they were good cars. Like you could buy a Ford Explorer with 125,000 miles for $500, and that wasn't that long ago. And it's just the car market's completely different now, and it's not fun anymore.
Yeah,
And it's just I don't know if technology messes everything up. I don't know if money going up or money getting wasted and quality going down, if that changes I don't know. I feel every time I talk about this though, I feel like my grandfather, because when I was having the time of my life, he was like, "Well, you know what? It really used to be fun because we could buy cars for $75 and sell them for $500 and give somebody a really good deal." And we just, I mean, there was cars that these dealerships are just throwing away they didn't even want, and we would be able to buy them and do a little work to them and then sell them to somebody.
I don't know. I remember because of the automobile business that I learned computers and how to operate a computer. I remember working for, it wasn't the Penske organization at the time. It was before Penske took it over. I think it was called United Auto before Penske took it over, and I was working at one of their dealerships in Scottsdale, and they had to teach me how to actually use a computer. I had never used a computer before. I didn't have a computer at home. It was like the most fascinating thing in the world to learn computers, and I don't know. I just everything about the industry, at least to me, was a personal challenge to figure out how to get good at it. How do you get good talking to customers? How do you get good at managing your inventory? How do you get good at marketing the inventory you have? It was just, there was always something. When you're in a dealership, there's always something. Most days as a manager, you are like a firefighter, in the sense that there's a little brush fire here and you put that out. And then there's this little brush fire over here and you put that out. And then, well, somebody accidentally has an accident with a customer's car. That's a big ass fire. And you got to put that one, but there was always something.
Jose runs into the side of the building with a 2007 Toyota Camry. How about that one?
Yeah. There was always something. And so you just never knew what your day was going to be. I mean, I remember when I was at the mini store, and I was off that day, and I came in the next day, and the finance manager grabs me and he goes, "We've got a problem." I go, "Well, what's the problem?" "Well, we took a deposit on the car in the showroom yesterday morning, and then before we closed, the same sales manager who took a deposit on that car turned around and sold it to somebody else and delivered it to them. And the first person who gave us the deposit is planning on coming in and picking up the car today because we gave them a buyer's order so they could take it to their credit union." Oh, and that sales manager did that. He just happens to be off today.
Yeah.
That's how I started my morning. Okay. It was like, geez, this is a fun way to start your day. Imagine the conversations I had to have with ownership, with the customer. It was, you just never knew what your day was going to be when you walked into a dealership. The one thing I did know after that was that sales manager wasn't going to be working there anymore after that. And that did happen. So yeah, it was fun to the end. I was in the business for 43 years, and I would say that I had 42 years of tremendous enjoyment and fun, and 1 year accumulated that was made my life miserable. But 99.9% of the time, it was fun. I had a great time. Does that make any sense?
So how did you know it was time to get out?
Suzanne had passed away and I had had enough. I just, at a certain point, you just know. My wife had passed away, and I had told the people that I worked for that I would work till the following May, and they found my replacement in February, so I left in February. My replacement lasted less than 60 days, but that's their problem, not mine. I just, I was tired. And I was tired. I was emotionally drained, not from the dealership experience, but from the life experience of watching my wife deal with lung cancer for 2.5 years. So that's how.
Were you still having fun to the last bit of it, or did you
For the
know
most
you were
part,
already?
yeah,
You
for the
did?
most
Okay.
part, yeah. I mean, because I always looked at it differently. I looked at it as if, there's that old saying in the car business, the feel of the wheel seals the deal. In other words, as a salesperson, you can't close a deal unless you get your customer to drive the car. They must take a test drive. And my saying was, if you give the customers a good show, they'll part with their dough. I just thought that we were in the entertainment business. I thought if we could provide the people with a fun time when most car dealerships wouldn't, that we would end up being the winning car dealership. So, I mean, I used to joke with the people, hey, there's no $10 cover, there's no 2-drink minimum, but if it's okay with you, we're going to have a good time as we figure out which car is the right car for you. If you don't want to have a good time, then I would suggest you go to a different dealership. But at the very least, we're going to have some fun here. And my theory was that we were in competition to get people's discretionary income. No different than, we were close to Philadelphia, people wanting to go to a Phillies game or an Eagles game or a 76ers game, or somebody wanting to go to see a headliner at one of the casinos in Atlantic City. We had to give people a reason to spend their discretionary income with us. And the way we did it is we made them have fun, whether they wanted to or not.
So here's a question. Yeah. Hearing all that you were still having fun towards the end of when you were there. So before that, I know you left the car industry to go start a golf pro shop,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
So, and your wife was still around there, so
Yes.
that wasn't something that was draining on your personal life. My question is, so you were having a great time in the car industry.
Yes.
Then, what was the pull? Why did you decide to get out of it? I know we're getting way far away from the car market.
To
But
open
I
a
like
golf store, because
yeah.
believe it or not, I loved the golf. I was terrible. I mean, I was absolutely terrible. But my dear friend Bobby Nichols and I, and Bobby and I ran Admiral Nissan. We used to go golf. We would go golf at 6:30 in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning. We'd play 9 holes before we'd go to the dealership to work from 9 to 9. Okay. and I thought to myself, man, wouldn't it be great to live in Arizona where you can golf year round? Okay. Have a golf store so I get to make a living doing something that I enjoy doing above and beyond selling cars. Little did I know that I was going to go absolutely broke, but it was fun while it lasted. Because I would bring some of the tactics from the dealership into the golf store, and I'd have the golf clubs. The prices were set, and people would be looking and they go, well, I'm not 100% sure. Well, let me ask you a question. If I could save you 5% off of the price of those clubs right now, and that's what I used to do, because my theory was I'd rather get 95% or 90% of what I'm asking for those clubs today than hope to get 100% tomorrow, because there's no guarantee that anybody will come in tomorrow. So, I trained my sales staff at the golf store to do the same thing. Hey, if we need to give them a package discount to get them to take the damn clubs and golf bag and everything today, do it. And so, I was selling golf clubs, but I was selling golf clubs like I was selling cars.
So it from what I'm hearing, then it wasn't you weren't tired of the car industry. It's just the allure of being able to have that golf shop was pulling you harder
Yes,
than
yes.
what the car market was.
And I thought, my goodness, wouldn't it be great to live in a part of the country where you can actually do things outdoors year round? You can play golf here. And little did I realize that my first summer there was one day where we had a high temperature of 121 degrees,
Oh
and
my
they
goodness.
shut down the airport because the guides for how to set everything up on a plane to land when the temperature was above 120 didn't exist at that time. Land or take off, and then the next day it went up to 122, and it was like, you're not playing golf when it's 122. At least if you are playing golf, it's the last round you're ever playing. So, little did I realize how friggin' hot it was in the summer, but it was just an opportunity to take a hobby and make it my means of income, or means of bankruptcy in my
How did you decide at that point to get out of it? What I mean, that seems scary to me to get out of something that you can make money, you have steady income, and then just be like, you know what, I'm going to go do this thing that I really want to do.
I was, I think, 38 years old at the time, and I said to my wife Suzanne, I said, I want to at least take the shot, even if I fail, rather than at 70 go, I wish I would have taken the shot. I wanted to try it. I guess I had a certain entrepreneurial spirit. Obviously, my son has that, and so that entrepreneurial spirit is what pushed me to try it. I wanted to know that I've gone through life and that I took a shot at doing something that many people would be afraid to try and do. Now, as it turned out, I was not successful at it, and I got back into the car business that I was successful at. But I needed to take that chance, and I did. And what's the worst thing that happened? I came out broke, bankrupt, and I started over in life. Okay, I don't know. It seems to sort of have kind of worked out.
And now we have content. Perfect. That's exactly what we need.
Yes, 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 exactly. That's why I did it. I did it for future content.
Yeah. All right. I think all the questions have been geared towards you. I got one here for me though, so I can answer this one. What's the best way to get your dealer's license? Well, I don't necessarily know that there's a best way to get them. I know in every state you're going to have to go through a certain amount of hoops to be able to get your used car dealer's license. I know for me, what I had to do, and I'm in North Carolina, we have to get a bond, which is basically insurance on our dealership. I had to go take a 12-hour class, I think, for our first initial class. Every year I have to take a 6-hour class to renew my license. But you have to take that 12-hour class. You have to have a actual showroom. They call it a showroom, but you just need an office that's like 500 square feet or more. You have to have a lot where you actually display your cars. You can't just park them at your house. And I know that there's some dealers that will have their car lot at their house if they're like out in the country and they just have 2 or 3 cars or whatever. But in North Carolina, you still have to have a separate space. My grandfather did this for a couple years before he hung it up, and he had a separate garage from his house, so he could define that as a separate selling space. So you got to have that. You got to have insurance, which cost a lot of money. And then you have to go pay lots of money to the DMV to be able to get your license. And then before you sign the paperwork to actually get your license, a DMV agent had to come inspect to make sure you have all your stuff in line. So that's what I had to do. And every state's going to be different. I think North Carolina is a little more difficult than most states, at least from what I've heard, to get your dealer's license. But it's all money. There's no easy or hard way. It just costs a lot of money, and you pay it, and you can be a dealer. You don't have to pass any test or anything like that. I don't have to pass any ethics things or anything. Anybody can be a dealer. You just have to have some money to be able to start it up.
Look at you today.
Yeah, and look at me today. I am on YouTube talking to Ray. That's how successful I am as a car dealer. I have to be on a talk show.
Well, there's worse things.
Feed my family.
Yeah,
I could be a used car dealer.
Yeah, full time.
If you liked what you saw today, do us a favor right here at CarSense. Like and subscribe. We're new. We're growing. You can't do without us.